Welcome to How I Killed My Mother and Other Confessions by the Mafia Hairdresser. This podcast is filled with episodes of my true confessions, harrowing, horrifying, and sometimes uplifting stories about my hair clients and celebrity friends, and of course, all about my mom issues. This podcast is brought to you by the demons in my head, the angels who told me I should do this podcast, and all the signed and unsigned permission release forms from everyone I mention in this podcast. This is your host, Jon-David, aka the Mafia Hairdresser, author of the novels Mafia Hairdresser and The Glow Stick Gods, and the upcoming book Murder, There's an App for That, all based on my fantastical, crazy life. You can listen to the serial podcast version of Novel 1 and Novel 2 here at the Mafia Hairdresser Chronicles and wherever you listen to podcasts. And both the books and the hit podcast, along with this one, How I Killed My Mother, are available at mafiahairdresser.com. And now on with this episode of How I Got Calm. And now on with this episode of How I Killed My Mother. This one's called Studio One, The Village People, and more name dropping. Of note in my high school years was that I made fake IDs, and word got around quickly about how my forging talents could help my fellow students buy alcohol. In 1977 through 1980, California driver's licenses were business card-sized laminated identifications, complete with a picture and the date and the year of one's birth. I found that I could remove the lamination with paint and varnish remover without ruining the picture or the type on the card. After the lamination was lifted, I would carefully scrape the last number of the year printed on the card with a scalpel. Then I would use the perfect blend of black liquid inks and a writer's inkwell tip to replace and transform the 2s of the 1962s into 7s or 8s, which made all of us who were 16 or 17, 21 years of age. After the ink dried, over several days, I re-laminated the card with several years of aerosol spray laminate to smooth out any of the rises or bumps that might have occurred from my ink number replacement. And I charged $50 for each one of those IDs that I altered in high school. And word of mouth of my little business and my talent spread not only in my high school, but to other high schools. And I think it really helped my popularity rating. And I must have made at least $5,000 in my junior and senior years. You know, in retrospect, to date girls to have been popular. On the day after I got my driver's license, I transformed my own driver's license to state that I was of drinking age, and almost immediately I began to sneak out of my parents' home in the middle of the night to drive down to West Hollywood, where I used my fake ID to get into a gay club called Studio One. I don't remember how I knew about Studio One other than I must have read about it in magazines because I was fascinated and obsessed with everything that had to do with New York's Studio 54. The movie stars, the rock stars, and the big city nightlife. Studio One was the Los Angeles version of the New York disco mothership, Studio 54. In Los Angeles, it was glamorous and cavernous, and it was a disco complete with strobe lights and the best and latest dance music and bouncers on the outside, ushering in the celebrities and checking the IDs of people waiting in line inside the velvet ropes that wrapped around the outside of the building. All those who entered were expected to dress fine and fierce and glittery. And if I could have been living my fantasy life in 1977, I would have been born into a small rich family who lived in a high-rise in Manhattan, like Buffy and Jody. Buffy and Jody were TV orphan kid characters raised in New York by their Uncle Bill and their butler, Mr. French, along with their older teen sister, Sissy, in the 1960s TV series Family Affair. Buffy and Jody had a doorman and took elevators from their condo to the street and hailed cabs by themselves to go to elementary school. Only I imagined that I would sneak out of my family's apartment in the middle of the night and past the doorman to my waiting cab that would take me to Studio 54, where the bouncer would sweep me in like a VIP, past the people waiting in lines, just like Drew Barrymore did when she was only 9 years old, too. So, I must have been nervous about going to Studio One for the first time. I was only 16 years old, and it was my first time trying out my fake ID at a gay club, for sure. And I must have looked like a 12-year-old with exceptionally straight and large teeth. The day I got my driver's license at the end of my first year in high school, my dad took me and my mom and my little brother out to dinner at one of my dad's gas station customers' restaurants to celebrate. And I'll never forget my dad telling the owner who stopped at our table how proud he was that his 16-year-old son had passed his practical driving test in record time. And I have to tell you, I've been practicing driving since I was 13. I was in that car like early. So the restaurant owner turned to my 4 years younger brother and congratulated him. And I have to say, I've always looked 10 years younger than my age, and I know that won't last, but whatever. And I do not take it for granted. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Thank you, jeans. What I'm saying is I just looked super young. I looked like I was 12 when I was 16. But my new and improved adult driver's license worked like a charm, and I was obviously able to conceal my inner terror and trepidation from the bouncer, but I don't remember breathing a huge sigh of relief once I was past the threshold of Studio One. It felt like home to me. I remember that. I belonged there. I had certainly visualized myself dancing at that club because I had seen pictures in magazines of people and stars dancing and frolicking at Studio 54. I imagined myself in that position, being there. And I think because I had worked at my dad's gas station, pumping gas and working on cars since I was 9 years old. So I had been around adults more than most kids my age, and that must have taken the fear away from going to a nightclub full of adults. And as a child, I worked alongside younger men who were older than me, and I listened to their weekend escapades of clubbing and dating. And after years of working with older teens and older men, over time, I just figured I could do whatever they could do. And I remember I wore new white Nikes with the red swoosh and the blue streak in the soles. The original ones, the ones that Farrah wore in the posters on the skateboard. My pants were Calvin Klein jeans with a slight flare, and my shirt was pink with a navy blue short sleeve, and it had blue rope laces looped through eyelets on the collar. And it was super tight and retro because it was a shirt that I originally wore in the 6th grade. But I'm sure I am Saturday nights. And I don't remember if it was the first night or the second night I went to Studio One when I met and became somewhat friends with the Village people. And they were the nicest guys. I liked beer when I was 16, but drink and drugs were not an option for me at Studio One, especially since I was and became under the watchful eye of the Village people and the other people that I'm sure were let in on the fact that I was underaged. But they let me dance my way into the morning at the club while never letting me make a misstep socially or physiologically or psychologically for my own well-being. Philippe the Indian and Randy the cowboy shoot away potential predators, and Philippe nicknamed me the squirrel because I was like a little critter who flit around the park minding my own business. Philippe and Randy taught me how to be like a squirrel because often older men would dance and troll up next to me. While I was dancing, which made me feel uncomfortable. There was always a random drunk or a way too high Studio One patron who may have felt like they were having a good time, but were in reality just messy. And I was not flattered by their attention if they noticed me. Through my Village people friends, I was taught never to engage with them in any way, especially by meeting their eyes on the dance floor. They told me just to look down and then dance and flit onto another place on the dance floor so the creepies would leave me alone and not get their feelings hurt. I think this must have been something that I learned how to do as celebrities. And that nickname, the squirrel, stuck to me at the club for a lot of years, and I was proud of it, and I still squirrel on dance floors at clubs today. Going to West Hollywood Studio One was as close to my fantasy life did not disappoint. I was a natural dancer, a good one, and I had the moves, and I just shut my eyes and I danced and I let the music command my body, dancing all night as if in a trance. When I occasionally looked up from the dance floor through my floppy auburn hair, the lights would sparkle in my eyes and I'd mimic and copy the moves of the other tranced dancers around me, and it felt like I was dancing for everyone and they were dancing for me. Occasionally, I'd connect with another good dancer eye to eye, and there was almost always like a kinetic energy exchange of happy and sexy approval and appreciation. The dance floor was a live hive of men and women who relished and celebrated their youth and their bodies and their souls by gyrating, hopping, stamping, or swaying. And I could never hang out with the people I met at Studio One outside of the club. And I never made lasting friendships with anyone, including the men of the Village People, because mostly I just danced. After all, I would have still had to leave by 3 a.m. to get back to my parents' house, sneak back into bed, only to wake up at 5 a.m. to go to work at my dad's gas station at 5 a.m. on Sundays. Not to mention, no one wanted to get to know me outside of the club because I was literally jailbait. Being 16 in nightclubs was way cool, but not as cool as and ideal as you would think it would have been if you didn't love to dance as much as I did. In 1992, I moved to Chicago. I was recently single, again. I had just turned 30 years old, and I did no longer own a business, so I had the time to become a regular club boy again in my adult life. Around that time, the new rave and the club scene was most of the mid-90s best DJs, traveling around the world with my posse. Occasionally, I'd tell my friends about my days at Studio One, and it probably sounded braggy or fantastical to most of them, but I wasn't bragging. It was fantastic, and I cherished that time, and I will always be thankful to Philippe, Randy, and the Village People for nurturing and protecting me. For when I was a circuit boy and all the party drugs were part of that scene, it never detracted from my dancing. Oh, I did do the party drugs, but they were never my thing. I never needed drugs to have a great time, and I never did enough of them to become addicted, as some of my friends did, and which I chronicled in my fiction work called The Glow Stick God. So buy that book. It's pretty good. It'll make you feel like you were there. In fact, my first editor had to quit editing it. She goes, I feel like I'm high. So I described what that was like. And so buy that book. It's pretty good. It'll make you feel like you were there. In fact, my first editor had to quit editing it. She goes, I feel like I'm high. So I described what that was like in that time. Although, like I'm saying, I didn't do the drugs that people thought I was doing just because I was there. But I'm sure I made it look easy, and there's a lot of guilt to that because I looked like I was having such a good time, and I must have looked like I was on drugs all the time, but I probably wasn't. Anyway, recently I was telling my little brother about what it was like hanging out in the clubs at the tender age of 16, and he laughed because he remembered I would first deposit my childhood dog Shadow into his room and then make my way silently as I could to my car and then to Studio One. I told my brother that he was the only one of two people who knew about my nightlife when I was 16, 17, and 18, and he was shocking because I was 16 years old and I didn't tell any of my friends at school. Not one of them, with the exception of Charles, who became my partner of 8 years, beginning when we were 17. That time in my life taught me how to keep a secret and how to live a double life. By day, I was just a normal high school student. On the weekends, I was a dancing queen. And then after school and on weekend days, I was working at my dad's gas station as a gas pumper / junior mechanic. And then as time went by, I would have had a whole new life with a whole new set of friends and another double life and so on. I think I've always had this weird double life, and I think it stemmed from that time. Anyway, I think that is why I'm recording this podcast today. I'm getting older and I'm merging all of my double lives, my different careers over time, if that's what you call them, careers, because it just seemed like that's just what I do. Anyway, I prefer to think of all of these things I've done and all the people I've met as just pieces of one fantastic story that seems to have no ending, because I keep on doing stuff that is interesting, but it will end. And I just want to make sure that my story is heard, because this will be the closest you'll get to Studio One in this little story, or the Village people, or me for that matter, before we're all gone. Okay, I just finished recording this episode, or editing it anyway. I recorded it a few days ago, and it's kind of short, so I'll add to it. Maybe, I think. And I just wanted to add that years went by and I was dancing and and Philippe was there, and I walked up to him and he was, "Hey, buddy," and I think we're both sober. I'm assuming. And everyone else is high on ecstasy or whatever. But I was sober that night, I remember. And I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, Philippe." And he goes, "Hey, how are you?" And he goes, "The squirrel." And my friends were there. And my friends were like, "You really knew him?" I go, "I told you I did." I was like, "You guys, I know a lot of people in Hollywood. I knew Rock Hudson and Liz Taylor, and yeah, they go, yeah, but some of your stories are, whatever." And I'm just like, oh my God, it's not like I name dropped all the time to my friends, but they just never believed me. And the Randy was doing I think there was the LGBTQ Music Awards, and it was at the Swiss Hotel in Chicago. I don't remember what year it was. And I was like, friend Randy over there. And my friends are like, "What? Are you kidding me?" And these are the same guys, by the way. Shout out to Tim and Larry and Keith, I think it was. And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And yeah, whatever. So I walked up to him and he remembered me as well. And my friends were like, "Oh, wow, we didn't really think." I go, "You guys." Anyways, they were very nice to remember me. And I thought that was very sweet. And they are just real people, the Village people. And that's it. That's what I thought I'd add. But I will add some more story to this. Maybe I'll tell you about Rock Hudson and Liz Taylor. How I killed my mother. Okay, so I am going to tell you some celebrity name-droppy stories because they're fun. And I never tell bad stuff, so I don't really worry about that kind of stuff. I keep secrets very well, as you may have discovered from past episodes. But I didn't really write anything down about Rock Hudson and Liz Taylor, and I'll tell you about them in a minute. I don't know why I never wrote it down, because I guess I tell my clients all the time. They love hearing about those two because they are two of the biggest stars in the world and that have ever lived. And they were both pretty cool. I liked them. Anyway, I'll read you what I wrote and then wing it, I guess, because I didn't write about them. So here it goes. Because I was and am a hairdresser who worked in Southern California, I get asked all the time if I did any Hollywood celebrities' hair. And the answer is no. And the reason is because I've done simultaneous careers throughout my lifetime. I couldn't really cater to a celebrity actor's schedule. I could never do theirs schedule. I could never do their hair on the fly, which is what they had to do half the time. I've done hair for some great actors who are on Chicago Fire and Chicago PD. That's in my Chicago days. I did Lindsay Wagner's secretary's hair. I did Esther Shapiro's hair, who produced Dynasty, and who else? People like that. People kind of behind the scenes that were supporting the actors who were stars or producing them. They were all cool people. One of my acting coaches, Kurt Nebig, who was a teacher at Acting Studio Chicago. He's on Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, all of those. And Ryan Kittling, I think I was the guy who gave him his first acting job in a play I produced, Successive Numbers. And he's now on Chicago Fire and Chicago PD. That's Ryan Kittling. Kitley. And I'm proud to see how well they're doing. Leroy Rogers is a pretty famous New York actress, and she was my one of my acting coaches, and I did her hair for years and years. So if you call them celebrities, great, because I just think they're really fine actors, and they've done very, very well. So it's kind of cool to know them. I can say hi, but it's not like we're best friends. I was their hairdresser, or hung out with them a little bit. And of the celebs as well, the only cool ones that I knew were the really old folks, the ones who have passed. I did know Dorothy Lamour because my friend, or the manager of my hair salon that I owned in Long Beach, California, was friends with Long Beach Civic Light Opera, and she was friends with Dorothy Lamour, and tons of old stars like that. Dorothy Lamour was in, I think, the Bing Crosby movies, the On the Road pictures, and it was really cool to get to know her. And then one day, Dynasty started, and Dynasty was on Wednesday nights, and this is the Rock Hudson and Liz Taylor story and how I got to know them. Dynasty was on Wednesday nights, and I don't think I did Esther Shapiro's hair at that time, maybe before, around, anyway. No, I did her hair when she was still doing the Colbys. So it was when the spin-offs started happening. And she would tell me, by the way, I can gossip about this. Hopefully, is he dead? Charlton Heston? She used to tell me how Charlton Heston pulled him up to his mark, and then he'd stand up and they'd walk and follow him with the camera in the Colbys, and then he'd have to sit down. And I don't know why. Maybe he was just, I don't know, hernia surgery, alcoholism. I have no idea. I can't remember. And anyway, so I am going every Wednesday nights to the Silver Fox in downtown Long Beach. My boyfriend, my high school sweetheart, he was working at the Silver Fox as a waiter. There was nice little bar tables, and Dynasty would be on Wednesday nights, and everyone would watch it. And during the commercial breaks, everyone got free champagne. You go up to the champagne bar. It was a champagne tower, and you just grab a glass of champagne for free during the commercials. It was super fun. And I had my own table there. And Rock Hudson and his two boyfriends, one was his ex and one was his current. And because I didn't write this down and I didn't research it, I don't remember their names. Christian, David, or something. But they had the same name. And they were really nice. Now, the older gentleman, his ex, was quite nice, and he and I became quite chummy and talky. And Rock Hudson and his current boyfriend was, they were just kind of more looking around your shoulder to other cute guys. They weren't really interested in knowing me, the squirrel. And so time went by, and we saw each other every Wednesday nights for months and months and months. And then one time, Rock Hudson says, I want to be on Dynasty. And one time, Rock Hudson says, I want to be on Dynasty. And I'm just like, okay, bitch, whatever. And he was kind of gristly at that time, meaning just a little older and up close and personal. He's still handsome, very magnetic, very nice. Again, he wasn't too interested in getting to know me because I think I wasn't like his type, frankly. And his boyfriend at that time, I don't remember him being friendly, not friendly, just nothing. But the old boyfriend, cool. And I remember thinking, he's never going to get on Dynasty. Well, those three stopped coming, and the next thing you know, Rock Hudson is on Dynasty. And I thought, oh, that's cool. And then the AIDS epidemic was rolling through our world. I mean, I was in Italy one time at that time, and I spoke words and I didn't know how it was transmitted. It was, you're walking death. And if you were an American and you were gay, you were the carrier, basically. So Rock Hudson's on Dynasty. No one knew he was gay because it's Hollywood. It wasn't like the Instagram days or the social media days where everybody, snaps pictures of you and, tells the tabloids everything. It was just kind of, it's Hollywood. We protect our own. We don't gossip. We don't, sell our stories that we have champagne every Wednesday with Rock Hudson. We don't do that. And so he's on Dynasty, and he has a scene where he kisses Linda Evans, the main character, the main heroine of the TV show. And shortly after that episode aired, he died of AIDS. First he went in the hospital, then he died. Complication. He died of AIDS. First he went in the hospital, then he died. Complications due to AIDS. They tried covering it up, his estate, but not so well. And it was a big scandal. In the 80s, this was huge. It was all over the papers for way too long. I'm saying, how could he do that? Linda Evans stuck up for him and said, you guys that's not how you get it. He did not put me in danger of getting AIDS. It was a huge deal. And he left his estate. I think the new partner was fighting over it. The old partner, I don't believe, did. Again, that's its own scandal. But the older partner, the older gentleman, he was really, really nice. I should remember his name. I'm not going to fact check this. I'm just spouting off the top of my head. And he was, when the Rock Hudson estate was coming under attack, or his name was being blasted across media, Liz Taylor stepped up to the plate. A big Hollywood star. She's, she could hurt her career. Not that she was acting that much at the time, but she was still in it. She was still Hollywood. She still wore the crown. And she worked with AIDS Project Los Angeles, which was a organization that helped people financially who were suffering from AIDS in LA, because no one would help these people, not their families, not the medical world, not the president at the time. It was just a bad time in America if you were a Los Angeles gay or New York gay or any gay suffering from AIDS. You were going to die. And you were going to go broke, and no one was going to love you, touch you, or help you. And so she's working with AIDS PLA, and they're going to do this cut-a-thon thing where hairdressers are going to come together and raise money at a cut-a-thon in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Long Beach, California, and San Diego, the 4 major California cities. And they needed a Southern California guy south of LA. LA and San Francisco would join and coordinate, and San Diego and Long Beach. And Rock Hudson's ex-boyfriend remembered my name, and he had called the Silver Fox where my boyfriend worked. He says, what was that guy's name? The boyfriend of the waiter. And he got my name, got my number, and Liz Taylor called me. Actually, it wasn't Liz Taylor. It was Jose Eber called me. And Jose Eber was and is still the famous hairdresser in Los Angeles who did Farrah Fawcett's hair, of course, Liz Taylor's hair, and all the glamorous Hollywood stars. He was the bomb diggity. I don't think there's anyone bigger than him except for Vidal Sassoon before him. And he's the nicest guy. And he calls me and says, hey, blah, blah, blah. And I definitely recognized his accent over the phone. He has an accent. And he says, I want you to come, up to Los Angeles and come to a meeting. And it was a meeting with him and Liz Taylor alone in the little offices at AIDS PLA. And they told me what they wanted. from me. And I said, yeah, I'll help you. And I ended up producing a cut-a-thon video that showed in all the bars in California to promote the thing. And it was pretty cool. And then working with Liz Taylor and Jose Eber. And he and I became friends. We kind of hung out a little bit here and there, like for prides and so forth. We were good friends for a short time. Not really great friends, but good enough. We just liked each other. It was fun. And Liz Taylor and he and I would have hamburgers probably a couple times in Los Angeles on Santa Monica Boulevard. I don't remember what place. I should know because I think she famously went to that place, but again, my mind is dying because I'm getting old. And anyway, she was beautiful. Her eyes were gorgeous. And she was kind and disarming. And I'm going to say that she was just a great person. So I got to know her, got to know Jose much more than I got to know Rock Hudson and Liz Taylor's story. And there was a Linda Evans story. I was in an elevator talking to a boyfriend. We were in Vegas, and Yanni, the musical artist, was performing there. And I saw him on the marquee in Vegas, and we were going up to the pool, my boyfriend and I. It was Flamingo, I think it was. And I said, oh, I wonder if Yanni's going to be here at the pool. And he says, why would Yanni be at the pool? No, I said, is Linda Evans going to be at the pool? And he goes, why would she be at the pool? I go, well, she discovered Yanni. They're dating. And I start prattling on. The elevator opens up. A woman with a hat walks in, turns about faces the door. And I'm so into my story about Linda Evans and blah, blah, blah. And Rock Hudson and on and on and on. And I'm just jabbering. And he's poking me. I'm just going, no, I just love Linda. Poking me. I'm just going, no, I just love Linda Evans. She's so cool. And she did this. And politically, she did this because she was an animal advocate. And I just loved her. And I just kept on rattling on about Linda Evans and what a cool character she was for sticking up for Rock Hudson and whatever. And sure enough, the elevator doors open and she walks out, this woman to the cat. She turns around and she looks at me straight face and gives me the biggest smile. I loved it so much. And then she walks away and sits at a chair before some Ohio women attacked her asking for autographs, and she left the pool area. So anyway, that's my Hollywood stories. That's as good as you're going to get. If I knew dirt or anything like that, I would never tell you. I have enough dirt of my own. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Over and out. Thanks for listening. New episodes drop most every Monday. To know more about me, Jon-David, or read my books, as well as listen to the podcast episodes of Mafia Hairdresser, The Glowstick Gods, Jon-David and Goliath, or more episodes of How I Killed My Mother, just go to mafiahairdresser.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment at will. I am Mafia Hairdresser on social media.